I'm ready. Welcome to episode 86 of Crosstown Cardboard. We're calling this one 401 Cards. And if you read the title, you'll know why Craig is so clever. That's Craig with a C and Carmine with a C, but Cards is spelled with a K for this episode because we're talking about cards as investments. 401k ARDS, 401 cards, like the retirement plan if we couldn't spell it out any more clearly. But Craig is the star of Crosstown Cardboard along with myself. That's at New York City Sports Cards for Craig. He's a math teacher, soccer coach in New York City. And I am Carmine at Carmine's Cards, the sports storyteller down here in Greenville, South Carolina, but originally from Westchester County, New York. And of course, we're both avid card collectors and card podcasters. We have not missed a single week of Crosstown Cardboard, which we hope we can say the same for all of our listeners and viewers. We're very thankful for. Even though at the time of this podcast dropping, I will be in Italy, partially my homeland. I'm like 40% Italian, so I'll take it. But going on a 2-week vacation with my mom, as I mentioned in the last episode. So we're recording these in advance, and that's why we try to make these episodes evergreen so they can live forever, no time span on them, which we do a lot anyway. So we're just sticking to the script. But Craig, can you explain a little bit more about the title 401 Cards and where we might go with this episode?
Sure. Now, I actually teach a financial math course at my high school, and it's a lot of talk about investing and banking. So that way, I teach it for 10th graders. So that way they have investing basics. Now, I am far from an expert. I would say I know everything. I have a strong foundation of how investing works. And one of my dearest friends, who's a financial advisor, says, if you have just a somewhat of a foundation on how investing works and compound interest, you know more than 99% of the people. Okay. So I kind of feel like this is a controversial topic a little bit because these are literally pieces of cardboard. And the difference between investing in a piece of cardboard and an index fund or a stock is the stock or the index fund, they have actual values, right? These cards are all perceived values. They're stores of value, if you will. The other difference is stocks, index funds, they pay dividends. Cards don't. So what makes these investments? Now, yes, we own plenty of cards that are lower end, that are just cool and have stories to them. But I think there's a reason certain cards cost more money. They're unique, they're rare, they're harder to find. There's something special about it. Maybe it's an old vintage card. And we like those cards. We're attracted to those cards that cost a little more, that are a little bit harder to attain. So if you're going to put your time into chasing this card and you're going to put your money into this card, it is an investment. It is an investment of your time. It is an investment of your money. And I don't care if you're buying a $2 card or a $2 million card. Nobody wants the values of their cards to go down.
Right.
Whether you're a collector, an investor. And personally, I have found this absolutely perfect recipe for me, where even if these cards go to zero, I still love them because for a variety of reasons that we will get into. So yeah, you could still collect your favorite teams, your favorite players, and look at it from an investment standpoint, hoping that these cards, at the very least, retain value over time, hopefully grow in value over time. So we're going to go back and forth, talk about some of our cards that we see as investments and the reasoning behind why.
Yeah. And not every card that's in our collection is a smart investment. We talked about when we've decided to even grade cards that were just for the fun of it, like the dual autograph that you graded of the two baseball players who I can't remember because they're not memorable players, but it was just fun for you. It wasn't maybe the smartest investment, but as far as having fun in the hobby, that's what you wanted to do. And so I think both of us have portions of our collection, like, for example, my Knicks collection of my on-card Knicks autographs. I have autographs of Tim Hardaway Jr., Landry Fields, Ronaldo Balkman, guys who obviously that's not an investable asset that's not going to steadily increase in value because they're great players to make it to the NBA, but in the NBA, they're not great players. They're not like all-time dudes. They're just somebody who you have an affinity for, and they played on your favorite team. And so that's a quest that I'm on, to collect all different on-card Knicks autos, of Charles Oakley and John Starks, like we talked about with the autographics. Those aren't going to be investments, but those are cool parts of your collection. So we're going to dive into what separates cards that are like, oh, that's cool for me in my collection, versus this is also cool for me in my collection, but it has an investable quality where I can really see this value increasing over time for reasons A, B, C, D. And I think through the examples that we both have, we'll list off, what we think is our own opinion of why these cards are going to be investable assets.
Okay. Should we just get right into it?
Yeah, go for it.
So I have 6 cards with me, and I broke them into 3 categories: my index funds, my blue chip stocks, and my play stocks.
Okay.
I think it's really the best way to think about this. So index fund is a collection of stocks, and it generally represents the market, right? So if you're familiar with like VOO, which is a Vanguard fund that mimics the S&P 500. So you could buy that index fund. When the market is doing well, it does well. When the market's down a little, it's down a little. Yep. So here are 2 examples of cards that I have that I look at as my index fund cards, because they're pretty liquid. They're not super rare, but they're both iconic. And the reason they're investments for me is there are cards that I think will stand the test of time, which was a theme of our old episode.
Yep.
And you also have to consider entry point. If you may have a card that's worth $5,000, if you paid $6,000, that's a bad investment. If you paid $1,000 for that card, then from your perspective, it's a good investment.
Right.
So here are my 2 cards. I consider these investments. I consider these cards that over time will at least retain value. And even if they go down a little, my entry price into these were so strong that they are good investments as it currently stands.
Okay.
The classic, the Michael Jordan 86 Fleer rookie card and a PSA 8. I think these are doing around 6,000. I'm into this for around 1,500. So if you just look at it from a number standpoint, I can't see this card ever going down to 1,500. Did I have a chance to sell this when it hit its peak of 20K? Yes. Do I regret that? My wife does, but still, I think when you like, index funds aren't really that sexy. Neither is this. Not to sound like spoiled or a diva or anything, but you know what you're getting here. And when I think about this card being in my collection down the road, I still think it's going to be a good investment, along with the Cassius Clay Muhammad Ali rookie card. Even though this is in a PSA 1.5, it's actually a pretty low pop count, and that is something that I considered as well. And I just think of these as really safe investments, especially safe because the lower grade in the 1.5 is less of a risky play. Like if you're buying a high grade and you're really dropping a lot of coin for this, there's more room to lose money.
Right.
And then the Jordan, again, even if this fluctuates, I'm into it for such a good price. I don't see these ever being irrelevant. And that's why I see these as good investments here.
That's interesting that your belief wasn't thrown for a loop when you had, the Jordan that, which by the way, it only sold for, so I'm just looking at the card ladder index here. So January 30th, 2021, there was a sale for 17,000. And, of course, that was almost a year into the pandemic. February 6th, 2021, there was a sale for 24,000. But then, you look at it 2 months later, Craig, it's down to 11,000, April 24th, 2021. Then a couple months later, 9,000, a few more sales at 9,000 and 7,500. And then by the time you're into 2022, it's, it's hovering around 7, 8, and then in the mid 6,000s. And now it's down to around 6,100, like you said. Yeah. So the pop count on this, which you probably know, is almost 8,800 in a PSA 8 for the Jordan 1986 Fleer rookie. Why are you so confident with it being high pop that that's going to stand the test of time? Because there's always availability of that card.
It's just one of the most iconic cards ever, and it's Michael Jordan. And I think if you take someone who's not familiar with the hobby and you lay out all your cards and there's a Michael Jordan 86 Fleer there, that's the card that's going to stand out to most people. If you are a new entrant into the hobby,
Yeah.
that's like something you would want to learn about.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And they're cool to me just because of the history and the legacy of MJ and Muhammad Ali and their significance in pop culture. So there's that cool factor of it where the cards mean something to me, and I believe in their values.
So I just want to point out, with some of the mathematical financial backing that you mentioned, if you look at the card ladder chart, and I'll just show it here on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on podcasts, I'll try my best to explain it. But basically, you see the chart is almost flatlining with some little bumps up and bumps down, but over the course of 1 year, the value has decreased 1%. So over the course of a year, it's basically steady, which I don't think you could say about a lot of cards. Like, a lot of cards have steadily gone down, as the economy and things are getting more expensive to buy as far as groceries, gas, home interest rates for mortgages, like 6 and 7%. So like real life, is also influencing what happens to the card market. As everybody knows who's been following since the pandemic and all the relief funds and the checks and everybody having extra money to spend, and being bored at home at that time and spending it on cards. A lot of people, or probably most people listening and watching our podcast here. But it's a pretty good sign that I think, going back to and we're not experts on economics, but just the principle of supply and demand. The demand for that Jordan is so high that even though the supply is also high, it's kind of at an equal level to where it's evened out and been able to maintain that steady price over the course of the year, which you've seen.
Yeah, good way to look at it. It's a really good point. You would think that because the price is leveled out, the demand has kind of met the supply. We're at that equilibrium. Again, this is an investment, so it's not something I plan on selling, but I've said this point many a times. You try to collect the cards I not only do like, but you hope to never be in a situation in your life where you have to sell these, but understand you have the right stuff if you need to.
Yeah. And that's kind of a good point to segue into one of the cards that I view as an investment for myself, which I've talked about on the show here before, but it's the 1980 Topps Bird and Magic rookie with Dr. J in the middle as the scoring leader that year. So that triple card, remember they didn't have individual cards for rookie Bird and Magic until 1981. So this is really their first card, in the NBA with Dr. J in the middle. And all three autographs, Bird, Dr. J, and Magic on the triple perforated card, a PSA 5 card grade with a PSA 10 auto grade on all three in-person signatures. So this kind of goes back to your point, Craig, about the Jordan not being low pop. Neither is this. There's a few hundred out there as far as, in the PSA pop report of all of the triple autograph Bird, Dr. J, and Magic 1980 Topps cards. There's a few hundred out there. But you also have to consider that much like your 1986 Fleer Jordan, this is an iconic card in the hobby. And as far as the pop count increasing, right now, if you want to get this card signed in person for Bird, Dr. J, and Magic, and I mentioned this a few months ago, it would run you like $1,800 just for the in-person autographs of all three guys because they upcharge so much for this particular card. So if you're counting $1,800 for the three autographs, plus what you're going to have to pay for this card in a decent condition, at least $500 probably if you want a PSA 5 or similar grade to then maybe crack out, or I guess you could risk it with a raw card, but you're already in the few thousand, you're like 2,500, around there, maybe 2,250 to 2,500 before you even send it off to PSA and hope for the best as far as grading. So that's my thought is, if I'm into this card for like $3,000, how hard is it for there to become more of this card in the future? And for the steps that you would have to go through to get it signed by all three guys, find where they're signing, send it off, make sure it doesn't get damaged every time it's getting sent to and from you, from whatever signing consignor you might be using, or if you're taking it in person to these shows or events to get signed. That's time, that's money, that's shipping, that's risk to transport everything, plus $1,800, plus let's say $500 cost of the card itself. That seems like a lot of steps and a lot of money to have more of these keep coming out. And, it's three all-time legends and Hall of Famers all on the same card. Like I said, iconic with Bird and Magic's first card. And so the combination of the coolness and the difficulty and cost to get another one of these that hasn't already been created with the three autographs, I think it's a solid investment, at least in my mind.
I agree. And when you think of the word investment, cards, stocks, anything, the whole point is you put X amount of dollars into something, the value of that goes beyond X.
Right.
Investing, it should be a long-term approach. That's what investing is.
Mm-hmm.
You put money in so it grows over the course of 10, 20, 30, 40 years. The sad reality of the fact is, and I don't mean to be too morbid, those guys ain't going to be around in 20, 30 years. So if you want to think of it like that, when those guys are no longer around to sign,
yeah,
that card value certainly isn't going down.
You must have read my mind, Craig, because I'll go right into another one who involves a late legend, Bill Russell, along with Larry Bird. The dual autograph I mentioned just picking up. It's the immaculate, numbered out of 25, Bill Russell and Larry Bird dual on-card auto. And I was just talking to my dad the other day about the same thing you just mentioned. One of the reasons that this is a great investment in my mind, not only because it's an awesome dual autograph on card of a nice brand with two all-time legends and pillars of the NBA, but like you said, there's going to be no more dual autographs produced involving Bill Russell and Larry Bird, or clearly Bill Russell and anybody. So the supply is cut off. That's it. And not only is it an awesome card of a dual autograph, like I said, of these all-time greats, but there's no more supply coming down the pipeline. So I think the supply and demand is a big part of that. And with the legends, having them pass on and limit that supply is something that you unfortunately have to think about when thinking about your investments.
Yeah. And it's easy to look at a very micro view of this, oh, how will that card be in a year from now? Look, if you plan on collecting trading cards for an indefinite amount of time, I know I certainly am. I've been doing this for 25 years. I don't plan on stopping now. Just picture what that card is going to look like 10, 20 years from now.
Yeah. It is interesting when you take a step back and you're like, to me, these two cards here are
thumbnail.
Yeah.
Good one. Cool.
We got it. All right, great. Good thing we changed our shirts from the last recording, so we got a new.
All right. Those two cards I just showed you were index funds. They pretty much mimic the market.
Okay.
Now, the safe way to invest typically is through index funds. But then there's your blue chip stocks, your Apples, your Microsoft,
yep,
your Googles,
your individual companies.
But again, nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed.
Oh, of course not. No, this is all a guess. An educated guess.
But if you were forced to invest in individual stocks, you think Apple, you think Microsoft. I think a lot of people might agree there.
Or these days, NVIDIA.
NVIDIA, sure.
You know what's sad? Real quick aside. I bought NVIDIA when it was like $30 a share when I was in college, and Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, when it was $3 a share. I sold AMD when it was $6 a share because I was like, oh my gosh, I just doubled my money. I was I didn't know anything about the financials of this. I just had a gut feeling like, oh, these microchips are going to be in everything. How can that miss? No idea about the financials. NVIDIA, I sold for like a 50% profit, and now it's like $900 a share, and I bought it at $30 a share. So,
well, when I was in college, speaking of selling too soon in college, when I was a junior in college, it was 2013, maybe I was a senior, whenever it was. I would go to the Walmart up in Geneseo, upstate New York.
yeah.
I would buy packs of 2013 Prism for $5 a pack if it was the rack pack. I pulled a Giannis green Prism rookie, and I sold it on the blowout card forums for $10. That card in a PSA 10 now does like 5 to 10 grand.
Oh my gosh, bro.
But I was a college kid. I'm like, what? $3 pack? I'm selling this card for $10. That's a Thursday night right there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a thirsty Thursday.
Sold that Giannis just a tad too early.
Yeah.
But another example, just now that we're on the topic, I bought a bunch of Stephen Curry cards in 2009. I'm like, look what he's doing in Davidson. How could you not love this guy? I thought I was so smart selling most of his stuff in 2015 when they won the first championship.
Yeah.
Unbelievable investment. I sold most of my good stuff, more than doubled on everything. That was a good investment. I cashed out. Those cards would be worth a lot more now. But I have a couple things to show for that still. Back to the blue chips, your Apples, your Microsofts, your Michael Jordans, your Stephen Currys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm even going to throw out Kylian Mbappe in this one.
Okay.
But I have a 2012-2013 exquisite Michael Jordan autograph card. I feel pretty confident in the long-term value of this card. It's an on-card autograph of Michael Jordan. Even though he's in a UNC uniform, still, it's exquisite, super cool.
And we talked about, college cards or nah a few episodes ago. Michael Jordan is also a college legend too. Hitting the game-winning shot as a freshman in the national championship with like 15 seconds left. So that's part of his legacy, and it's the top brand with being exquisite.
Speaking of college cards, this was one of the few cards remaining from my childhood Stephen Curry collection. I purchased this card probably 15 years ago. It's an autograph rookie card. I must have paid $40 for this card. It's worth, I think, around $1,000 the last time I checked. So in that sense alone, this card is never going back down to $40. It's just not. I mean, obviously nothing's certain, but in that sense, it's a great investment. If you think about what I'm into this for, what it is now worth, and just Curry's legacy on the game, just like Apple's legacy in technology, I feel pretty good about both of those. And I threw another one in there. I don't want to say this is like Tesla because Tesla's not performing so well lately. Maybe something a little more proven with a better track record. But this is my Mbappe card from the I probably should have saved this for the next category.
It's okay.
But 2018 Prism World Cup Mbappe, blue Prism, unbelievable color match, numbered out of 199 and a BGS 9.5. Why do I feel so good about the long-term investability of this card? The player, the color match, the set.
Mm-hmm.
Prism World Cup. You cannot take away what Mbappe did during this World Cup. They won. He was voted best young player of the tournament. He scored a goal in the final. And Prism World Cup is always, I think, going to be a legacy brand in this hobby. And Mbappe is he's not a GOAT yet. He's no Curry. He's no Jordan. He's on his way.
Yeah.
He's on his way. And I don't think there's really any debating that. So when I think about, again, investability, if you told me I had to hold these three cards for the next 5, 10, 15 years, I'd feel pretty damn good about that store of value in these three.
Yeah. And they all have not only investments financially, but like, for example, that Curry card, and we're, mainly focusing on 401 cards that implies money investment. That's an investment of how long you've had that card, an investment in your emotional connection to it, getting it as a kid, an investment in your Stephen Curry collection that you sold most of away. That Mbappe is an investment in your love of him as a player and love of soccer.
Love him as a
So,
player. That's another thing. You know, me being a big soccer fan, coach, player, like I spend most of my days on the soccer field. I love watching Mbappe play. So it's pretty fun, him being so young. I think he's 24 now, knowing I'm going to watch him play for the next 10 years. Hopefully my future children get a chance to watch him play. So there's that element of it as well.
yeah. And that's, you know, an investment in the memories of what he did in that World Cup as well. Like you rattled off those stats. That, I think, kind of transitions pretty well into the investment of the memories that surround this card. This is a card that I got at Culture Collision, Craig, our second time meeting, which, hey, by the way, if you're bored, go back and watch those Culture Collision vlogs, see some of the deals we had and some of the fun we had in Atlanta, and Luka's 70-point game too. That was pretty crazy.
73.
But, you know, I thought I scored pretty well with this dual autograph here. Macaulay Culkin and Joe Pesci, Home Alone, dual auto, numbered 1/4. A Christmas all-time classic, of course. And so the reason I said I'm investing in the memories and the nostalgia, because when you see this card, Craig, for most people, I would say it makes you feel something. Like I told people at work that I got this card, you know, middle-aged women, because they will have a connection, just like most of us will have a connection to the movie Home Alone around Christmas time. So I think this was the first year they made this Leaf co-star, Decadence, Macaulay Culkin, Joe Pesci, dual auto. First year they made it, this year. So we'll see if it stands the test of time as far as how many they're going to produce, if they keep making this every year and how that goes. But as far as right now, there's really not very many out there. And just the feeling that you get when you see this. And I'm investing in the long-term watchability of the movie, really. You know,
Will the movie stand the test of time? Clearly.
It already has.
Right.
Or at least so far. I mean, but I think Christmas movies, like It's a Wonderful Life, my favorite Christmas movie. Look at how long that stood the test of time for. I think 50s that came out. So, you know, 40s or 50s, I mean, that's decades and decades ago. And I think if you look at Home Alone, that's another generational Christmas movie. So we talk about generational talents in sports cards like Wemby or somebody like that, or Mbappe, Caitlin Clark, and of course LeBron and guys like that. But when you think of generational pop culture figures, that would be something that I would invest in, because I think this is in the top 1% of pop culture movies. And when you get to Christmas movies and that niche, that's really a cult following, you know, around Christmas movies. So
is that a 101?
No, it's 1/4.
Okay, so they just don't show up. Imagine something like that 10 years from now goes on public auction when there's not really much like it.
Yeah.
That's going to fetch some serious demand.
I hope so. And it depends, like I said, if there's more supply coming in, if they decide, oh, wow, you know, that first year of making those was really good, let's keep making them for the next 5 years. But then at the same time, you have the first year edition of that card. So that's another investable quality that would have.
Really fair point you make about maybe they decide to make more of those, because I think for the last 10 years or however, you think of Tom Brady autographs as this unbelievable investment meaning it's going to hold its value. Tom Brady's a fanatics athlete. He might sign a lot. We don't know what that's going to do to your investments. You may be holding this high-end Brady card thinking like, amazing investment. All of a sudden, all these autographs flood the market. What happens to your investment? I don't know.
What about LeBron?
Same idea. Something to think about.
Yeah, because, you know, his market, not only with being an all-time great, but having that Upper Deck exclusive deal, now signing again with Fanatics, and autographs are going to hit the market for the first time in, 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Did you hear the rumor about butter?
No.
I don't want to spread it. All right, so my last one.
Where did that come from?
So my last one.
That's good.
This is my. So we have our index funds. We have our blue chip stocks.
Yeah.
This is my play stock, and here's the background story. My wife, when she was in college at BU, worked at Lululemon just as a job. So her dad was like, let me buy some Lululemon stock for fun because
Oh, wow.
the connection to it, you know?
Yeah.
My father-in-law's daughter's working at Lululemon. Let me buy some Lululemon stock.
What year is
Stock-
this?
What's that?
What year are we talking right now?
Almost 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he's done phenomenal on his investment.
During
Lululemon,
during COVID, that athleisure, all that athleisure stuff went
listen,
wild.
Lululemon, you get what you pay for. Unbelievable quality. I wear it as much as I can.
I'm a big Lulu guy. I have 3 pairs of Lululemon pants. I just bought a shirt last week. Very
How
comfortable.
about that? Not sponsored yet. So, so
How good would that sponsorship be?
unbelievable. We got to push for that. So
Oh.
anyway, Lululemon was a personal connection, but he invested in Lululemon and
Yeah.
it performed extremely well. So the equivalent to that for me is like my New York Knicks collection. I love my New York Knicks collection. I've really found my lane in this hobby. It's what brings me the most joy, buying Knicks cards.
Mhm.
There are still Knicks cards, even though you love them, they're still investments.
Oh, yeah.
There are rare cards. We have a Knicks card group of 20 members. So you know there's demand for Knicks cards out there. So,
Started by you, right?
yes, exactly.
You got to bring the
been
Knicks
good.
fans together.
Good banter in there. Good
Yeah.
sharing of cards as well. So of all the Knicks cards in my collection, I chose one that I look at as, wow, like this is unique. This is special. I could list this on the market anytime between now and forever in time, and it will fetch a demand. Can you guess which one I chose?
Is it one of your 3 dual autograph patches with Bernard King and Walt Clyde Frazier?
It's not. It's
Okay, I was gonna say the
Yeah.
one of the flawless patches. Yeah.
So this is 2013-14 flawless, the Charles Oakley, the Emerald parallel out of 5, game worn patch. It's like the whole R from New York. I think this is an investment card because there are so many
Really?
different Charles Oakley cards you can buy. But what's a Charles Oakley card that will at the very least retain its value, or will I be able to, if I ever needed to sell, which God forbid, I really hope I don't need to, should I do okay on over time? And I think this one fits the criteria because it's just so unique and it's so
Yeah.
rare. And
That's
I
interesting.
think this is an investment. I really look at it like that.
That's interesting because in our last episode we were talking about what makes a one of one special. And if you haven't listened to that one, I thought it was a good discussion because it's nuanced. You know, we try to get into the nuances you might not hear elsewhere and get into the weeds for the super card nerds like us. And we were talking about that one of one Jarrett Jack. Now, even though it's not, I wouldn't compare Jarrett Jack. I think Charles Oakley has a much bigger following, especially having spent time with the Knicks, being an enforcer, you know, having that tough guy and his time with the Bulls as well. So I think he definitely has more of a following than Jarrett Jack. I'm not trying to fully compare the two, but we had the one of one Jarrett Jack autograph that you sold for 60. Where do you land on a not A-list player and having them be an investment? Because like the people who I've listed are more on the A-list as far as like, you know, Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Home Alone movie, you know, Dr. J, Magic Johnson. And Charles Oakley is, you know, has a mythical thing to his strength and size and that kind of thing, but he's not an A-list. He's not a Hall of Famer.
No, he's not a Hall of Famer.
So how do you evaluate like having a not Hall of Fame guy being an investable player?
I think there are enough fans of Charles Oakley and enough fans of the Knicks out there that there would be demand for this. Like, sure, he's not a Hall of Famer, but there are plenty of Hall of Famers who just kind of go off into oblivion.
Right.
And then there are Hall of Famers, non-Hall of Famers who, I don't know if I worded that correctly. There are non-Hall of Famers who just go into oblivion. And then there are non-Hall of Famers who stand the test of time in terms of basketball relevance. And I think Charles Oakley fits that bill. And there are enough passionate fans about him, which is like why I see it as an investment. I ever put that card on the market, somebody will want it.
Stand the test of time like an oak tree.
Nice.
But I think you really said that well, Craig, because you can't just evaluate it on the accolades. What's the fan demand for this player? And then if you have a top 5% card of that player, which I think that flawless chunky letter patch is,
Okay.
now anybody who's interested in that team or player is likely going to be interested in that card.
Precisely. So it's a card I love, and it's a card that I see as an investment that will retain and hopefully grow in value over time.
Yeah. And I think, speaking of Knicks legends, let me bring up one more. This one, Willis Reed, the captain, on-card auto, notable nicknames, numbered at a 99, but it really doesn't come up very often. It's a piece that a lot of collectors have stashed away and don't list for sale. And this was the one that I got from Jeff's Cards on Instagram, who was just on Ken's show at Sports Card Lessons, a friend of Crosstown Cardboard.
That was good.
And, the guy who we spent our whole time with at Culture Collision, my roommate 2 times at the National and Culture Collision, just to list all of Big Ken's accolades. But that's a great episode if you guys want to check that out, because Jeff, the way he collects and his pop culture side and, the cards that he looks for, very interesting. Also a New York guy. So he's Crosstown Cardboard as well. But I got this from him, and Craig, you wanted this card also.
I did.
Because of the inscription. Yeah, I know. I'm happy that at least it has one half of Crosstown Cardboard represented. But the reason why I think this is an investable card, not only because of the inscription, which I've mentioned, liking collecting inscriptions, but we kind of alluded to this a few minutes ago. It's the first year of notable nicknames. So the first year of a set, to me, adds and I think to most of the hobby, adds a premium as far as long-term collectability. And you see that down the road, like you said, 10 years down the road, there's going to be a lot of notable nickname sets. So which one's going to stand the test of time more? Just like the rookie card, the rookie year of a product, to me, sets it apart and makes it a much more investable asset.
Yeah. Plus what's that number 2?
It's numbered at a 99.
Okay. So it's rare enough where you got to assume someone who's getting a card like that is going to keep it. That's really not a card you're going to find in repacks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And another good point with this too, yeah, you're not going to find that in repacks. That would be quite a hit in a repack. Is that with cards like this, where it's a collectible item, right? Jeff selling this at comps feels like a good deal.
Yes.
Because the card is rare, scarce, and very cool and collectible, and likely an investment for the future, to where even right now, you're going to have to pay probably comps or maybe more to get something like this, because that it is a good investment and doesn't come up much.
Right. The collectible cards are the cards that people keep. And because people keep them, there's less supply.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's less supply, when something like that does go on the market, there are a lot of eyeballs on it. And that's what makes it a good investment. So collect the right stuff. Not only can you collect the types of cards that are rare and unique and you like them, because there's a lower supply, it's ultimately a good investment if you ever do decide to sell.
Yeah. Man, I think I got to get that like on a quilt, what you just said there. That was a great way to sum up, because like I was talking to my dad, and it's funny to speak with people outside the hobby about the hobby and get their perspective as well, because a lot of times it can be insightful and different. And he said, so basically what you're saying is you're investing and long-term collecting is just centered around the best stuff.
It's simple when you think about it.
And I was like, I've been racking my brain about investing thousands of dollars into this hobby and thinking that it's a good, side investment for the future. And you just broke it down in one sentence. It kind of makes it seem a little silly, but I was like, you're right. When you break it down to that level, yes, but then you have to figure out what is the best stuff. And that's kind of what we're breaking down through our personal collections in this episode.
Yeah, it's perfectly said. And I think that's why I don't really love new product. I don't really see new cards being produced that I look at as, oh, I want to have this and I want to hold it.
Yeah.
But it's a different landscape today. Figure out what works
So,
for you. There's no right and wrong way to do it. This is just the investing episode. I love talking about investing with my students. I
yeah.
think it's just like anyone's portfolio. You have a mix of stocks and bonds and index funds and your
Mhm.
401k. It's okay to have collectibles as a piece.
Right.
Hopefully not the whole thing like our friend Plug in the Valley, but let your cards and your collectibles be a piece of your investment portfolio. It's just way more fun of a piece. It's way more fun to look through my cards than it is to look at how my index funds are performing.
And it's much more active for most people, unless you're day trading, and then you're assuming a lot more risk than trading and selling cards. So you can be active in it and, follow sports and current players and, that kind of thing. And I think like one of the qualities as far as like the best stuff, what's the best stuff? You go to the best brands like my Magic and Bird dual autograph, exquisite finalists on card dual auto numbered out of 25. That's a good example. Similar to your Jordan, an exquisite Jordan. That's an awesome combo of two words that, if you were going to do like one of your math equations, X plus Y equals Z, well, exquisite plus Jordan equals investability. And like, same thing with this, we mentioned the one of one in the last episode, the flawless Larry Bird, one of one game used patch auto. That's something that, best brand, best card serial number, one of one, and best combination of what you can have in a card, which is game used and on card auto. So it has three of the best things. And it's, for me, the best player I can collect. So it has a personal element to it as well. And then this is a one I just wanted to bring up.
I like that card.
Before we wrap
I'm a
it
big
up.
fan of that card.
Yeah. This is one of my favorites. This is the Magic Flawless Game Used Letter Patch, numbered out of 25. And we think it's part of the S, I believe is what we said. Bottom part of the S.
We thought it was the J at first, and then
Might be the
corrected
J.
us. Someone corrected us and said it was the S.
Yeah. So either way, it's at least half of a letter from a jersey that Magic.
The Letter Boys.
Wow. But we're not taking L's.
Nice. Do we have a thumbnail for this already or not?
Yeah, we did.
We do. Whatever.
You liked our other thumbnail.
We got options.
So, with this card, it's, again, the best brand with flawless. In my opinion, you could argue National Treasures, Immaculate is up there as well. But I think, do you think flawless is the best brand of Panini? Yeah. But like the rookie card, though, the RPA, National Treasures, I mean, flawless is actually coming up. Flawless has really
you are not going to get me excited about an RPA where the patch is from nothing.
Yeah.
And it's numbered out of 99. I get that that's what moves in this hobby. I don't think a lot of it doesn't do it.
I feel a shift because with a lot of the flawless RPAs being game used or at least player worn.
Yep.
And a lot of the National Treasures RPAs being nothing, like you said, not affiliated with anything. I think, over time, I would be less inclined. And I think, in my opinion, the hobby will be less inclined to continue investing in the National Treasures as like the accepted standard of the RPA versus what's actually a cooler product, which would be the player worn or game used compared to the not affiliated, which Flawless has versus National Treasures.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Panini's not going to have the licenses anymore.
Yeah.
So there might not be Flawless and National Treasures in the future. And that might even put a premium on the decade where there was Flawless and National Treasures.
Right. I mean, I think in my head, what's going to happen is just like what happened with Exquisite when Panini took over, with Exquisite being an upper deck brand, that was the number one product of that time. No more being made. Now, in my opinion, Flawless has taken over the mantle as the number one brand. Now, what happens when Flawless is no longer being made, or if, let's say, they don't decide to include that in Fanatics, does that become the next Exquisite? And I think it will be. So that's why I really like investing in Flawless as far as a current product. And a game used letter from Magic Johnson, an all-time great. And you look at a lot of these numbered out of 25, and none of them have a patch of this quality. So that sets it apart to me as being an investable asset. How many of these are out there? Not really very many.
And if you're watching on YouTube, I would actually be very curious to hear what others like. Make a comment on a card that you own that you see as an investment for yourself and why.
Yeah. That would be interesting to see, because everybody's going to have a different perspective, and, you know, who knows who's going to be right. I mean, we're just saying our opinion. Like you always like to say, Craig, we're just two guys in the hobby, average dudes, just trying to impact the hobby in a positive way and put out our own opinions, and hopefully somebody can identify with it, learn something from it, take it into their own hobby journey. But we also want to learn from other people and their hobby journeys, which is why we listen to a bunch of other podcasts and read the comments and respond. And so that would be a really interesting discussion to see, like you said, what other people deem as their investable cards and the reasoning behind it. We could probably learn a lot.
Yeah. Have a great time in Italy. Ciao.
Thanks, bro.
I hope you find a card shop.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see. And then I'll report back, and see what the Colosseum is all about. Florence, Venice, Rome, Pompeii. Speaking of standing the test of time, the history that happened there with the volcanic eruption, it'll be really cool to see things that I've always learned about, like, in the history books and coming up through school. And then you're like, wow, here's the Colosseum right here.
Enjoy that time. Take it all in. Not every day you get to go to Italy.
Yeah, I will. I'll let you know how it goes.
Okay. Peace.